so excited to be talking to director Ahmir Questlove Thompson and producer Joseph Patel about Sly Lives, their new documentary about Sly Stone and the extraordinary musical influence of Sly and the Family Stone. Welcome, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I mean, you won the Oscar for Summer of Soul.
Yeah.
Did you know right away that your follow-up was going to be a Sly Stone documentary?
We knew pretty early. I'll say that mid-edit of Summer of Soul. Actually, when we were editing Sly, I sort of said, man, you know what I killed to see? Someone should just make a doc about what happens to Sly's life right after these 10 days of Summer of Soul, because he'll do Woodstock and then nothing's ever going to be the same. And I think, like not even a day later, Common out of the blue calls and says, hey, I heard you're doing that Black Woodstock movie, but we had the Sly and the Family Stone film. Y'all think I'll be into that? Like literally just fell into our lap. So we found out early.
It's one of these things, like, do you feel like, within the music world, Sly Stone, Sly and the Family Stone, incredibly influential. Mm-hmm. Your film does an amazing job of showing the way that they influenced hip hop and so many other artists to come. But do you feel like that there's still he's unsung in a way or undersung? Absolutely.
I think basically the basis of the film, like it was almost at his undoing as opposed to just like revisionist history and erasure. Sometimes it's, especially now, it's easy to take for granted how all that sounded so radical. Like what we're doing now, like it's nothing to use a drum machine now. Like I've made phones on my album. I've made songs on my album with this telephone. Like technology has caught up, but Sly was the first to really take advantage of a lot of things that we now take for granted. And so I guess it's our job to champion his genius.
But also I think the subtext, we've talked about this throughout the filmmaking process, is the fact that Sly's still alive, we almost take him for granted, right? Had he died at a young age, maybe, we would have revered him a little bit more.
The hero.
And I think so, the film doesn't address that specifically, but that is definitely the subtext, is like kind of, when he went quiet for many decades, like people kind of forgot about him. Yeah. And, he had such an impact on music that we probably shouldn't have.
I love the way that you there is a certain chronology to the telling of his life that you present, but you also break at points to like have Jimmy Jam talk about how, a certain musical part of Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself influenced Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. Mm. I think that all of those things really make this like such an artistic appreciation. How important was it to get those elements in there?
I think for our productions, there's two audiences that you're speaking to. There's the inside baseball music nerds like ourselves, music heads, and we could have went way deeper. Like that was like one of the easiest stories we could tell that everybody could be connected to. But then, you also have to make a human connection as well for someone that has no clue about him, but it's like, what is it about the story that's going to resonate with you? But we're just music nerds, and music is the social adhesive of the world. Like that numbers are the things that connect us to each other. So
we were very intentional to not make a dime a dozen music doc, and to show like a song like Dance to the Music.
That was incredible,
right? To have Jimmy, to not just say it was oh, that song is incredible, but
right.
to tell the viewer why, right? Mm-hmm. You have Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Nile Rodgers explaining why that song is sophisticated and catchy at the same time. And so we wanted to give the viewer the tools to understand that. So when they hear that song again, they never hear it the same way again, right? So.
Yeah, it's hard to think of anything before Sly and the Family Stone that was quite like that. It feels like even like James Brown and his sound, that he developed like on in the Jungle Mood and everything, like that was after, like, I don't know, Sly Stone was doing things truly that had never been done before.
I would say that I mean, not even just the social construct of it all. Like everything about Sly and the Family Stone was meant to break a rule or be taboo or just be uncharted territory. Like even the existence of an intersectional and interracial group, what Sly spoke about, a lot of those lyrics are confessional, a lot of those, which was so unheard of. Like the idea of rocking the boat, telling people to rebel or how to feel, those sort of things. Like black music really wasn't in that territory yet. It was most soul music is, I would say, a hands up, don't shoot sort of approach. We come in peace, like we're not here to harm you, which is why Motown made people go to charm school and cross their legs and hold their tea and all that stuff. And, just the mere fact that they wore their street clothes on stage is like a revolution. Like groups weren't supposed to do that back in the mid 60s. So everything about this band is revolutionary.
And I mean, so much of Sly Stone's story, in a way, about the last decades of his life, has been a story of absence as well.
Mm-hmm.
His absence in the musical landscape. And, I'm just curious, was there a version of this documentary that you envisioned where he would be participating himself to direct a camera, or was it pretty much just understood from the beginning that he would never participate?
We interviewed him for Summer of Soul. Like, not a lot of people know that. And we gave it our best shot, but he, health-wise, just wasn't in a place where it made sense to put him on camera. And I think when we first started talking about this film, we realized we probably weren't going to have that opportunity. He's lucid. He's been clean for like 3 or 4 years. His family obviously supports him. It just didn't make sense to exploit that in a way. But there's enough people in his orbit, from band members to his children to the people who've worked with him in the past, that probably have every reason to hate Sly, but they all love and adore him still. And I think that there's a power in that.
That speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it speaks, his absence over the past few decades also speaks to the subtitle of your film, The Burden of Black Genius. And I think that you address this in a really thoughtful way, and certainly with the interviews that you gathered as well. Ultimately, the film goes into so much depth on this that it's hard to just ask you to sum it up in a nutshell. But do you feel that Sly Stone is a particular representative of this concept of that you're trying to explore about just the extraordinary demands that are on Black artists?
Well, that's what makes Sly unique, because he is the first artist of the post-civil rights era that's given the world. There's still restrictions on Chuck Berry and James Brown and Ray Charles and anybody that came before 1968. Still restrictions. Like none of those acts could, Chuck Berry had to sleep in the car outside of the hotels he would play in. You know what I mean? So, but it's always what happens when the world is at your feet and you're given everything you want. What is it that you feel inside? And, for a lot of us, there's just a large amount of guilt that happens. Why has this happened to me? Why me? Like, surely there's someone that even more talented than I am out there, or, and there's that feeling. Unfortunately, Sly's the first domino in a trail of them. Nina Simone, Michael Jackson, Prince, Whitney Houston, George Clinton, Shaka Khan. Like, literally, think of any mega Black celebrity or sports figure or actor or comedian and there gets to a point where something comes in their life that sort of takes them off the path. And why did they do that? They could have just, and that's the burden.
You have an extraordinary montage at the end of the film where you show a number of Black artists who have been held to the standard and this level of scrutiny. And, forgive me if you don't want to answer this, but you do have a moment where you show Will Smith on stage with his Oscar, and he's undeniably linked to your previous film, Summer of Soul, and what happened. We all know
what happened.
But it was an interesting moment to include that and to address that. And was that important for
It
you?
was definitely important discussion. Like, how do we handle it? Like, what frame do we show? That was probably a rare moment of multiple sabotaging happening in one moment. Like, that's lightning in a bottle. Yeah, I mean, we have to give examples, and I think it was tastefully done. You know, it wasn't like I inserted myself in that moment, but that's definitely a moment in history of which, you know, you're often faced with, you get what you came for, but what happens when you get what you thought you wanted? You know, what happens to your life then? So it still happens. So it's not just like, oh, well, he was back in the 60s and drugs and whatever. Like, it's happening right now as we speak.
Exactly. It's ongoing. And, you know, I mean, you're obviously a huge fan and know their music incredibly well. But what was something about Sly Stone that you learned for the first time making this film that you didn't know before?
I think in us dissecting everything about it musically, for me, I didn't realize the power of unison. Usually, you know, I come from a world where, like, you work with D'Angelo and he spends a whole year just doing the harmonies alone. And it finally hit me doing the Sly Stone film that when people do harmonies, that's sort of like, there's two types of way to take music. You either listen to somebody that you know you can't do that, and sometimes we need to watch a Simone Biles or a Michael Jordan or just someone that extraordinary that you know you yourself can't handle what they're doing, and you just marvel at it. But then I didn't realize the power of including people. Sometimes if you have everyone singing sort of unison, then that's a wink to your audience that you can sing along with us. And I didn't realize the power of non-harmonies, the way that I found out making this movie.